for me, I feel like if I'm looking for something that's negative, if I'm looking out for it, then I can protect myself from the negativity. So it's easy to look at things that are negative, right? It takes a lot of courage to be realistically optimistic about your life because it feels like you're setting yourself up for failure.
I believe the biggest problem in the world is that people don't understand themselves enough. This show is designed to help you understand your INFJ personality, heal from your past, and create a life that you love. I'm Sarah Kuhn, and this is the Quiet Ones podcast. The Quiet Ones podcast is presented by Nanocraft CBD. Nanocraft was built on a simple mission: create exceptional CBD products that contribute to overall health. Get 10% off your order when you order through the link at infjwoman.com/CBD. That's infjwoman.com/CBD. There's a link in the show notes. I've been thinking about New Year's resolutions already. I seem to start planning earlier than most people, but there are a bunch of things that I know that I want to change. So I started making a bunch of those changes right now because I just couldn't wait. I've been cleaning out a lot of things in my house that I don't need and listing them on eBay, kind of like a virtual garage sale. I've been cleaning up my diet and making healthier choices. I've shared a couple of pictures on social media about how I'm trying keto diet for a while. I've been getting outside and exercising more. I've been writing every single day, which makes me a lot happier. It makes me feel accomplished every single day. And writing every day is something that I've wanted to do for a long time. So it feels so nice to be able to do that. I've been listening to Gary Vee a lot lately too. He starts his YouTube videos by saying, "I just want to be happy. Don't you want to be happy?" I completely agree. I just want to be happy. So I'm putting in the work to do the things that I know will make me happy, even if it feels like a lot of work right now. It kind of feels like I'm trying to start moving a really big, heavy truck all by myself, like I'm pushing it uphill, but I'm making progress, I think. I hope. I'll keep you updated on how it goes. And if you have any New Year's resolutions that you're looking at, I would love to hear about them. Let me know what they are. You can send me a direct message on Instagram. I respond to all of my direct messages. So this week on the podcast, I'm sharing with you a video that I did that was a live video in my Facebook group. Every single month, I do a live workshop in my Facebook group that is completely free. So if you haven't joined, please make sure that you do. There are over 1,400 other INFJs already in the group, and we're just waiting to connect and to make friends with you. We would love to have you as a part of our group. If you want to join, go to facebook.com/groups/INFJwoman. There is a link in the show notes. All right, let's take a listen.
So today we're talking about how to get past fear. I have always considered myself as a realist. I don't like being an optimist because I feel like there are too many of these like happy, peppy, almost toxically optimistic people that I just feel like I don't want to be that kind of person because it's like they're just always happy and they're always optimistic. It's like too many sunny days in a row. Like you wonder if they're on drugs type of people. I don't know if you do. I certainly do that. Like you cannot be that happy all the time. It's just not it's not a thing, right? There was this movie, and I'll probably like totally butcher the quote, but there was this random movie that I was watching a while ago that was about a hotel that was in some poor country, I think, and there was this guy that like everything kept going really, really wrong, and the quote goes something like, "Everything in my life has been such a massive disaster, so I've just decided to be positive and hope that these disasters are going to actually turn out to be something good. And to me, I was like, okay, that's like, I guess that's a good way to think about things because in my life, I feel like there have been a lot of things that have just been like a massive disaster. And it's like, oh, that's my luck. Like everything is a disaster because that's how it goes for me. Um, and that negative attitude, though, it just leads to more negativity. And I think that's why I have clung to being a realist because it feels safer for me to be cynical or um, to just look for negative things. Because for me, I feel like if I'm looking for something that's negative, if I'm looking out for it, then I can protect myself from the negativity. So it's easy to look at things that are negative, right? It takes a lot of courage to be realistically optimistic about your life because it feels like you're setting yourself up for failure. There have been quite a few times where I have hoped for the best. And I like the phrase like prepare for the worst but hope for the best. But that really also trends you towards looking for the worst. How many of us have been massively hurt in our lives before the age of 10 years old? I know that I was. I've been through some really, really deep pain. And for us as INFJs, it's really painful and it affects us a lot because we're so sensitive. We're so sensitive to our own emotions and then to other people's emotions. We just soak up all of the pain. And especially it happens to us when we're young because we don't understand what we're doing. We don't understand our personalities. We don't understand that it's easy for us to soak up everybody else's pain. And so we have no way to guard against that. I have this story that made me think about something that happened to me when I was young. We had this church group, my older sister and I had this church group that we went to that was a lot like Girl Scouts, but it was called Pathfinders. And they had this day of like competitions. There was kind of like a track and field day. I don't even remember because I was so young. They had all these different events that you did. And they let me participate in it, but technically I was too young in order to get credit for it. And so at the end of the day, even though I had participated in all of the events throughout the whole day, and it was like a 6 or 8 hour thing, I mean, it was a big event. So even though I had participated in all of the events, when it came to the end of the day, they did this award show. And so they gave awards to people who had won events. And the group of people that I was with won an award, and they called up by name every single person that was in that group, but they didn't call me up because I was too young to get credit for it. So I was too young to get an award for it. So I watched everybody else go up and get their award. And I felt like, I mean, I didn't understand that I was too young. So all I had was the feelings of not being enough, of not being recognized. Like I did all the things that everybody else did. So why wasn't I recognized? And it hurt me something really bad. I remember standing outside by the car. I don't know if I ran outside or what happened, but I remember standing outside by the car and my dad listing all kinds of things. He's like, "Do you want ice cream? Do you want me to buy you a Barbie doll? Like, what can I do to make this better?" And I just remember crying, thinking that there's nothing that you can do. Like, you can't fix this type of hurt. And I mean, I was probably first grade, probably even before first grade. So, like, 5 or 6 years old when that happened. And I remember that so much. I mean, it was one of my earliest memories, honestly. So a lot of us have experienced some kind of hurt, a hurt like that that's like a rejection that becomes that voice in your head that says, "No, no, it's safer not to expect anything. It's safer not to put yourself out there." So when we talk about fear, what we fear the most in this world is rejection. We want to be loved, we want to be accepted, but we've all experienced a time when we weren't loved and we weren't accepted. Maybe it's a rejection like what I experienced. Maybe it's somebody that you liked and you wanted to go out with and they laughed at you. That happened to me too. It's happened to me a couple of times, honestly. Um there can be so many different types of rejection. And once you feel that type of hurt, your ego wants to protect you. That's a part of your brain that's like, okay, I'm here to make sure that nothing happens that's bad to you. So you got rejected one time, I'm going to protect you from never getting rejected again. But what that does is make you not want to put yourself out there at all. It makes you want to not open yourself up to any type of fear, any type of rejection. It makes you afraid of asking people to go out with you. It makes you afraid of asking for something that you want or that you need. It makes you afraid of asking for a job promotion. It makes you afraid of being part of a group because you've been rejected by groups before. It makes you being afraid of being in a competition because you've lost competitions in the past, right? And you just don't want to do that anymore. So then there's the second part of this, which is your habits. 95% of what you think and what you do is a habit. You do the same thing that you've always done because it's easy. And it's like your brain runs on autopilot, right? So you get hurt and rejected early in your life, and you learn to protect yourself from that rejection. And so as you grow up, that protection becomes a habit. That fear of rejection becomes a habit. That fear of not being good enough, of not being lovable, of not belonging, it becomes a habit. And so you cling to that habit like your life depends on it because you feel like your life does depend on it. If you don't actively change it, if you don't recognize the voice in your head and put effort into changing that, then that fear that you have will rule your life. And the fact of the matter is that just because you got hurt once doesn't mean that you'll be hurt again. Just because you got rejected by one person or two people or 10 people doesn't mean that you'll be rejected by everyone. I read this stat probably on Instagram not too long ago that said that even if 99% of the world rejects you, that still means that there's 1% of people who will accept you. And 1% of 7.7 billion people in the world, it's a big number. It's like, I think it was like 75 million. Don't quote me on that because I'm not great at math. But it's still a huge number, right? I mean, even if you look at like 1 in 100, if 100 people reject you and 1% of the world will accept you, that's still one person who's going to accept you. How many people live in the town that you live in? How many people live in the state that you live in or the country that you live in? It's still going to be a big number of people that accept you. When I started my Instagram account, INFJ Woman, I never thought that there would be 60,000 people that would follow me. Never. I thought I would be lucky if there was 1,000. And in fact, I was like, no, it's probably going to be more like 100 because there really aren't very many INFJs. And so many people have told me, um, you have this massive problem because you're only looking at INFJs, which are one of the rarest personality types. And so you're not going to be able to build a business and nobody's going to follow you on Instagram because you're looking at people who are incredibly rare. And I'm like, so what? Like, I don't care if I can only help one person, then everything that I do is worth doing because changing one person's life, helping one person to understand themselves and believe in themselves and overcome the problems that they have, I mean, that could change the world, just one person. Think about the influence that one person has. You never know what that could do for them. You never know how their lives could change. I think that so many people focus on fear and they focus on negativity and they focus on scarcity, right? We learn to focus on scarcity because so much of what we hear and see on social media, on the news these days, it's all about scarcity. That's the way to sell something to somebody. You make people afraid of it and you tell them who's to blame for it. You make them afraid that there isn't enough for everybody. That's part of supply and demand as well, right? The less of something that there are, the more valuable it is because not everybody can have one. The thing that most people don't tell you is that those are sales tactics. And the truth about the world that we live in is that there's a lot of abundance in the world. Just because there is some scarcity or because people use scarcity as a sales tactic, that doesn't mean that that's actually the reality of the situation. Just because Elon Musk has millions and billions of dollars, that doesn't mean that there's less available for other people. Just because some people have 50 million followers on Instagram, that doesn't mean that there are less followers on Instagram available for me. We really have to kick ourselves out of that scarcity mindset and start looking for abundance in the world because there is so much abundance. When we're talking about fear, how do you get past fear, right? That's the topic that we're looking at. That's the thing that everybody wants to know. You don't want to live in fear for the rest of your life, but you're really not sure how to get out of it. There are 5 things that are important to do that are really super easy. The first thing that you have to do is you have to witness your fear. Try not to judge yourself. Try not to change the fear. Just notice it. Look at the fear that comes up in your daily life. Try to recognize it when it happens and recognize it for what it is. I have anxiety, and so a lot of times it's difficult for me to say, okay, I know that there's something holding me back. Is it anxiety? Is it fear? I mean, most of the time it's a combination of both things. Um, an example is I'm terrible at making friends. I've always been terrible at making friends. And even the friends that I have, I'm terrible at keeping them as friends because I don't like to reach out to people. I feel like I'm bothering people, that they don't want to hear from me. And even if it's just like a text message or a message on Instagram, it's like, ugh, I don't want to bother them. And so I'll talk myself out of doing things. So in those moments when I'm thinking about somebody and thinking I should check in on them, it's been a while since I've spoken to them. I always wonder, am I going to bother them? And then I stop myself in that moment and go, wait a second, that's just fear. How would I feel? I would be so excited if somebody sent me a text message and said, "Hey, how are you? I know it's been a while. Let's chat this weekend." Or, tell me about what's going on in your life. Don't you think that other people would be excited about that too? If you would feel excited, then wouldn't other people feel excited too? So it's in those moments that you have to learn how to recognize fear and to name it. When you name it, you take away a lot of the power. So witnessing fear is the first step. The second step is be willing to change. You don't have to actually change yet. You just have to be willing to change. A lot of times we get stuck in our habits and we like what's comfortable. We like what's familiar. And if fear is familiar, it may not feel comfortable in the moment, but it's normal for us because it's what we're used to, right? So the thought of change probably brings up a lot more fear, a lot more anxiety. And the way to combat that is to not say, "Okay, I'm going to change right now." It's more like I'm willing to change. I'm thinking about change. I'm open to change. I'm willing to change. This is also the place where I strongly suggest that you look to a higher power. Now, that higher power, it doesn't have to be God. If you believe in God, this is a great time to surrender. If you don't believe in God, it doesn't have to be God. It can be the universe. It can be an inspiration that you have. It can just be a support group that you're a part of. But whatever your higher power is, being willing to change is something that you can ask for help for. It's important for us to recognize that we don't have all the answers, that sometimes we need help. And that's okay. That's what a higher power is there for. That's what that their belief that there is somebody or something that's guiding you and that's showing you the way to go, that will open the right doors for you. The next thing that you have to do, so the first one is witness fear, the second one is be willing to change, and the third thing is choose something different. Every time that you see fear come up, you have a choice. You can give in to that fear, or you can actively choose something different. The opposite of fear isn't bravery, it's actually love. Love is this amazing, powerful force that we really don't use enough of. A lot of times we think about love in a romantic way, but that's not the only type of love that exists. How many of us, if we were asked to make a list of the things that we love, how long would it take you to write down yourself? When I was asked that, I don't think that I would have put myself on the list. You know, I would think about my hobbies. I would think about the people who are inspiring to me. I would think about my family and my friends. Um, I don't know that I ever would have gotten to myself. In those moments, though, where you have fear, if you can show love instead, if you can choose love instead, your whole perspective changes. Another way to look at it is to choose gratitude. That one is a little bit easier for me because love is like I have this weird relationship with self-love that I'm working on, but I'm not quite there yet. And so in those moments of fear, when love feels weird and impossible to get to, I choose gratitude, and that feels a lot easier because I can be thankful for something. I can be grateful for something, rather than being afraid of it. When, just as an example, you know, when I'm thinking about texting my friends and not wanting to bother them, I can choose to be thankful for my friends. I can choose to be thankful for the times that they have reached out to me. I can choose to be thankful for the support that they have shown me. And I can choose to show them love by reaching out to them and choose to reframe how I think about reaching out to people. Rather than saying it's going to bother them, now I can say, this is going to help them, this is going to support them, and I choose to believe that they're going to be thankful for it. The next step is to forgive yourself. A lot of times when fear comes up, we look at all of the places that we've let fear hold us back and stop us. And it's difficult to choose love because we spend so much time judging ourselves. As INFJs, we're really, really good at seeing the future, not because we are clairvoyant or anything, but because we recognize patterns and we understand that history repeats itself and people are basically habits. And so we know that people who have chose one thing are more likely to choose that thing over and over again. So, and we're also very, very good at, you know, we have this intuition that collects all of this information and organizes all of it and says, hey, this is what's coming. It's easy to judge yourself for the times when you didn't see things coming. It's easy to judge yourself for when you chose something that you knew that you shouldn't have. That your intuition was telling you to do something and you chose not to do it. Or vice versa. You thought your intuition was saying this is what you should do and you did it and it turned out to be really bad. And so maybe that's part of the reason why you have fear now, why you're living in fear now. That judgment process just causes more fear. The only way to get around that, to get through it, is to forgive yourself for those mistakes. If your friends or your family members had made those same mistakes, would you be treating them with harsh judgment? Or would you be open to forgiving them? You, I mean, for me, I would be way more likely to forgive them for making mistakes. Anytime one of my friends makes a mistake, I come at them with compassion. I meet them with understanding and something similar to, we're all human, everybody makes mistakes, it's a part of life. And the best thing that you can do is pick yourself up and keep going. When I feel like I have failed myself, I don't need people to judge me because I judge myself so harshly that it is it's painful, honestly. I mean, if somebody said to me the things that I say to myself, it's like abuse. Why do we let ourselves continue to do that? Why is it we wouldn't say those things to our friends or our family members, so why do we feel like it's okay to say those things to ourselves? For me, forgiveness, especially self forgiveness, is something that I've been working on and working through. I'm in this support group, and somebody said recently, they said you have to make amends to yourself. And that was the first time that I have ever heard that. I've heard about making amends to other people. If you let somebody down, if you were mean to them or something, of course you want to go and make it right. But I had never heard of the concept of making amends to yourself. And so even now, I'm still trying to figure out exactly what that looks like. And the most that I have come up with so far is just to give myself more grace, to to know that failure is a part of life and that fear will come up in those moments, and instead of judging myself, um, to look to forgiveness and to look to love instead. And the last step is to expect miracles. Expect something really, really good to happen. Look for the optimistic side of things. Look for the positive things. I look at this the same way that I look at my car. When I bought my car, before I bought my car, I didn't see a lot of red cars. I drive a red Toyota Corolla, and it's this really pretty color. It's called Barcelona Red Metallic. That's like a special color that's made for Toyota. So before I bought my car, I didn't see a lot of cars that were like mine. But then I found the car that I wanted that was the exact model. It's the sport trim, so it's a little bit fancier than all the other ones. Once I bought it, I started looking for red cars, like almost unconsciously. It's not like I wanted to see red Toyota Corollas, but because I had bought it and I was focused on it, then I started seeing red Toyota Corollas everywhere. And I was like, does everybody have a red Toyota Corolla now? That seems really weird because when I was looking for mine, it took me several weeks to find the one that I wanted. And this was like 2019, so it was pre-pandemic and all of the, supply chain issues that we have going on right now. But it took me a while to find it because there aren't a lot of Toyotas for sale, period. A lot of used ones because I didn't buy a new one. There weren't a lot of red ones for sale, and there weren't a lot of red ones that were the sport edition. So it took me a while to find one that was available, that was close to me, that I could get. But once I started looking for them, then my brain got into this habit of looking for them. And now I see them everywhere because that was part of my habit. And I believe that fear is the same way. or being a quote unquote realist. It's the same way. When you're looking for and being prepared for the worst possible thing to happen, then you're going to see more negativity. You're going to see more cynicism because that's what you're looking for. But if you take an optimistic point of view, if you look for good things, if you look for abundance in your life, if you look for forgiveness, for happiness, for joy, for love, you're going to find more of those things.
I have a Q&A session to share with you that I'm going to be adding to every show every single week. I'm recording them live on Instagram on Tuesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. Please come and join me there and get all of your questions answered. My Instagram account is at INFJWoman, so please make sure that you come follow me and join these live sessions. Okay, here's this week's Q&A. Okay, so the first question is, I have a fear of letting my parents down. How do I get past that? I had this fear when I was young too. I still kind of struggle with it at times now, but it's a lot better now. When I was growing up, I wanted to make my parents happy. I was one of those good children who, if my parents told me to do something, I was always doing it. If my parents told me not to do something, then I would never go near it. So when I came to, when I got to like high school age, you know, you have to decide what you want to do with like the rest of your life. And there was all this pressure to do the right thing, but I had no idea what the right thing was. And the only real message that I got from my parents is you have to go to college. And so I was like, okay, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to college. But I always looked to them for all of the answers, right? And so when I asked them what should I major in, I got different answers from them, and it was really just kind of like, well, it's up to you. And I'm like, cool, but what do I do with that? It's almost like when you're young, you're conditioned to not make decisions for yourself. And then you get to be the age of like 18, 19, 20, and all of a sudden you have to make all of these decisions. And you feel all of this pressure to make the right decisions, but you don't know how to make a right decision because everybody's already made all the decisions for you in the past. And so for me, that was like this horrifying time in my life that was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to manage myself. I don't know how to parent myself, right? So I had to learn all of that. I ultimately decided, I graduated from college in, I don't even remember, the first time, well, I graduated high school in 2004, and then I graduated in 2006, my first degree, and then my second degree was in 2010, I believe. So right before I graduated with my second degree, I left the area where my parents lived, and I moved 1,000 miles away from my parents. And what happened was I was forced to make all of my own decisions. I was forced to figure out who I was as a person. And it was the best thing that's ever happened to me. I had relied so much on everybody else who was around me to make decisions. And I'm still kind of bad about that now. If there's a big decision that I need to make, or if I'm even worried about somebody, like if they said something nasty to me or something, I have this habit of going around to each one of my friends and asking them what they think. And then like taking a poll, and then I'll figure out how I feel based on how the majority of them feel. Which I know is not the best way to go about things, but that's what I've done for so long. When it comes to, though, a fear of letting your parents down, I think it's important for you to recognize that your parents want what's best for you, ultimately. Even if they're telling you that you need to do a specific thing and it doesn't feel right to you, they're telling you that because they want what's best for you. My mom told me that I should major in business when I was in college, and I was like, that's ridiculous. I don't want to start a business. I don't want to manage a business. I don't want anything to do with business. And here I am. I have my own business. I run my own business. Even my day job is marketing. So obviously she knew more than what I gave her credit for back then. That's another thing that you learn as you grow up. Now that I'm almost 36 years old, I have just recently in the last few years started to realize that my parents know a lot more than I ever give them credit for. And I've actually made this habit of every time I figure out one of those things, I have to call my mom and dad and be like, listen, I'm so sorry. I know that I told you, or I acted like at least, that you were stupid for so long, but it turns out you're actually right. And they're like, oh, really? That's funny. So yeah, that's one of those things. The older that you get, the less you realize that you know. It is important though for you to succeed on your own. If you live under your parents' idea of what your life should be, you're going to be really unhappy. Your parents, they want what's best for you, but it's not your job to live their life or to live their version of your life. It's your job to figure out who you are as a person without them and to succeed on your own. And even if they're not happy with you when you start making those decisions, they will ultimately be happy for you. When I moved away from my family, my parents told me it was the worst thing that I had ever done. And my mom even said to me, I'll have the guest room made up for you when you get back. And I'm like, I'm not coming back, I'm moving. And she's like, yeah, but when you get back, it'll be here for you. And I did actually end up having to go back for a year. But after that, I was like, okay, I have to figure this out. I have to do this on my own. And now my parents tell me that they're very proud of me, that I made all of those decisions and I was able to step out on my own. So, I mean, that was what I was looking for. And I think that's ultimately the fear of letting your parents down. That's what you want to hear, is that they're proud of you for making your own decisions and for stepping into your own. And really the only way that you can do that sometimes is to disappoint them. But in the end, you're going to succeed and you're going to be a lot happier if you make decisions based on what you want rather than what your parents want. Okay, the next question, what to do when no one understands you? So there's this whole thing with INFJs that the thing that we want the most is to feel understood, because we feel so misunderstood by most people. And the fact is that the majority of people will misunderstand us, not really on purpose, but just because they don't understand personality types and they don't have any desire to understand personality types. So you can sit there and preach at them until they're blue in the face and they're not going to get it because they just don't want to understand. But that's okay. They don't have to understand in order for you to feel understood. We feel rejected though when people don't want to understand us. We feel rejected when people don't make an effort to understand us. And I think that's the biggest part of the understanding, right? Because we want to be understood. And then when we don't get that, we feel rejected. And that causes us to go back into our shell and hate the world and hate all of the people because why are they so mean to us? But I want to ask you a question. When you feel like that, are you making an effort to understand the other people? Are you making an effort to understand the people who are doing that to you? Because a lot of times the answer is no. We're so focused on how we feel. We're so focused on the hurt of being rejected that we don't care about how the other person feels. We don't even consider it. So in those situations, if you start with understanding, you might actually get a lot more understanding in return. When you start with understanding, then it's easier to say, okay, this person who's rejecting me, maybe it's your boyfriend, well, he has a thinking personality type. So when I come at him with all of the feelings, he doesn't understand that. And it's not because he's a guy, and it's not because he's like male chauvinist or something. It's because he has a different personality type. And so in his brain, he's doing the best thing that he can for you by giving you facts and logic. And because you have a feeling personality type, you're doing the best thing that you can for him by giving him all of the emotions. And so you're basically sitting there speaking two different languages to each other. And both of you are feeling misunderstood, and both of you are feeling rejected. When if you would start with understanding and say, okay, we actually communicate a little bit differently. So let's talk about how we communicate and talk about how we feel seen and heard and work on this together. Then you would have a whole different outcome of just a simple conversation. Another suggestion that I have for you too is to find people that you do connect with. It's so easy for us now to say, well, I don't know any INFJs, right? There's none of my friends are, none of my families are. I don't know how to find them. You know, even me, I live in very close to Boston, Massachusetts, which is one of the biggest cities in the United States, but it's not like I'm walking around the city asking every single person if they're INFJs. I mean, I would never do that. But I have this Instagram account and there are more than 60,000 people, the majority of whom I assume are INFJs. And we have this amazing thing called the internet, called Instagram, called Facebook, where we can connect and we can be there for each other and support each other and become friends. How many friends do you have that are on Instagram that you've never met in person? I have tons of them. I have tons of friends on Facebook that I've maybe have met in person one time. One of my best friends who I talk to pretty much every day, I've met her in person one time. So I don't discount Facebook friends or Instagram friends. I think it's the best thing in the world. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to start this account, because I want to be a place for all of us to connect. I want to provide that platform. I have a Facebook group right now that's free. Of course, I don't have the link. Oh, the link is facebook.com/groups/INFJwoman. You can also find it if you just go to my regular page, which is facebook.com/INFJwoman. And I'll put the link for it in the description as soon as we're done with the video. You can join it for free. There is 1,400 people in there already. And it's a great place to connect with people and share your experiences. The other thing too, I just kind of wanted to float this idea and see what you guys think. I'm thinking about starting a support group for INFJs. And I know that sounds really weird. I don't know if I want to call it a support group, but that seems like the best thing. Like the best, easiest way to explain it. That's, you know, kind of like, hi, I'm Sarah. I'm an INFJ. I don't feel understood. And maybe just share your experience without a lot of, here's what to do. It's more of just, here's my experience. Because I think that so much of us benefit from just hearing somebody else say, me too. I do the same thing, right? I was listening to this podcast just yesterday and somebody was talking about having a support group for highly sensitive people. And I was like, yes, that's what we need. We need a place where we can just all come together and support each other. To make sure that we all know that we're not alone, that there are other people who do the same things and feel the same way. So I'm going to work on that and I'll keep you updated. If you haven't already, make sure that you join my email list so that you know whatever I decide to do with that. You can join my email list at that infjwoman.com/newsletter. And so that way you'll get all the answers. I see quite a few people are saying it sounds like a great idea. Nothing is more insane than cringy INFJ quotes all over Instagram. Wow. You know, I think it's so funny that there are so many people on my account that just want to hate. I don't get that. It doesn't make any sense to me. But that's people for you. That's the internet people. Okay. Next question. Are INFJs and INTJs interchangeable? No, INFJs and INTJs are not interchangeable. Sometimes it feels that way because we as INFJs, we use both the feeling and the thinking parts of our brains. So sometimes we can act like INTJs. A lot of times we use facts and logic to help us get to a decision, and we can see things from that point of view. But the big difference is that INTJs don't focus on feelings and emotions. They focus on facts and logic. And really, where this really comes down to where the rubber meets the road is how you make decisions. That's what decides whether you are a feeling type or a thinking type. So you go back to the last decision that you made that was like a really, really big decision. For me, the biggest decision that I can think of came from when I moved to Boston. Before I was thinking about moving to Boston, I had never been here. I had only seen pictures, seen videos, heard people talk about it, but I had never been here. And I knew that I wanted to move to the East Coast. I love the ocean, and Boston is right on the ocean. So I was like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. I like colder weather too, so that seems better than like anywhere south of there. And when I started talking to my family and my friends about this, thinking about moving to Boston, and they're like, that's insane. Like, think about how much it's so expensive to live there, and it's so far away, and supposedly people are rude there, and it's so cold there, and you know, all of these legitimate reasons of why all these legitimate reasons why maybe it's not factually the right thing to do. But the reason that I decided to move was because it felt like the right decision to me. It felt like the right thing to do. It felt like this is what I should do. So when I tell people that, a lot of people look at me like I have two heads. Like, really? You moved to one of the most expensive places in the United States without an apartment, on an airplane, like without even bringing your car, just because you got a job and that felt like a good decision to you? And I was like, yeah, I knew in my heart and my soul that this is where I was supposed to be. There was something telling me that this is what I was supposed to do. And whether you want to call that intuition, whether you want to call it a higher power, whatever it is, I knew that was what I was supposed to do. I made that decision based on how I felt, not based on facts and logic. I don't think anybody would move to Boston based on facts and logic. I mean, when you consider traffic and the cost of living and the high taxes, it's like nobody would do that. But for me, just walking down the beach, there's a beach that's like 10 minutes from where I live. Walking down the beach, feeling the salt air, you know, the saltwater air, listening to the waves crash against the shore, that's everything to me. I mean, I would pay twice as much to live here. Not that I want to, but I would. It's just because of that. I mean, that feels like soul food for me. It makes everything feel like it's right in the world again. All right. So I see some questions. Why are we mostly attracted to the deeper aspects of life and we have a higher purpose? You know, I don't know exactly why. I would say it probably goes back to our intuition, back to the fact that we spend so much time in our heads, so much time thinking things through, so much time connecting the dots. we have this amazing unconscious, really, process that goes on where we collect all of this information and just put it all together very quickly. A lot of people don't do that, right? So when you're trying to explain the bigger picture to somebody, when you're trying to tell them, you know, I see this and it's like 12 steps ahead of where we are now, most people don't get that because they don't have the same ability to think things through. They don't have the intuition it's almost like fortune telling or predicting the future. It's not like a superpower. It's more like looking at patterns. You know, people say that history repeats itself, and I believe that that's true. I also believe that 95% of what people do and say and think is habit. 95%. So if you pay attention just a little bit, you can predict what people are going to do based on what they've always done, because most people don't change. And if they do change, it takes a lot of work and a lot of effort and a lot of time for them to change. So for us, we just see those patterns so easily. And I think that we just get bored with normal things. You know, I had this habit, I guess you would say, of watching 90 Day Fiancé, and I've watched it now for probably 2 or 3 years. And they have all these spin-offs, so basically there's a new show that's running every single week for all that time. And I've recently lost interest in it because it's just so predictable. You know exactly what's going to happen, even though it's changed, like the characters change. And you know that it's like scripted because all reality TV shows are scripted. But you can predict what's going to happen because all of their relationships are the same. The people that they pick to be on the show, they all have the same aspects to their relationships. One of them's a terrible narcissistic person. The other one is a total people pleaser. And then they get into all these weird scenarios and you're like, I've seen this before. I mean, I know it's a brand new episode, but we've been here before. Why do we have to keep watching the same thing over and over again? So for me, I want something that's more complex. I don't like all of the things that most people are entertained by because it's just so easy and so predictable. That's like, what's the point? Yeah, The Bachelorette is the same way. Bachelor, Bachelorette. I can't stand those shows. People are so superficial that it's just like all they're focused on is what's right in front of them right now. They're not concerned about anything else. Okay. Ugh, I'm sorry. The cough that just won't go away. Okay, I don't usually let people into my world easily, but I'm always amazed when people are shocked at my sense of humor. This is the hidden part of an INFJ. I don't know. I think it could be. People are usually shocked and surprised by my sense of humor too. And I think part of it comes from the fact that I'm so shy and quiet when I first meet people. And the more people that there are around, the less I talk. I don't like big crowds of people. Every time I get a new job, it's like walking into a new company and all of these people, and you're like, you know, the new pet that's on display. And it's like, ugh, I hate that. I lost my train of thought. Oh, so I think that people get this idea of who we are as people. They think that, you know, we're just so shy and quiet. And then a lot of us too, you know, we consider other people's opinions and we consider their feelings. And so we kind of tailor our personality to them. And then when our real personality comes out, you know, with your sense of humor, if it's anything like mine, I am super sarcastic and I'm very straightforward, straight to the point, almost like devastating. And I think it's funny. Some people don't think it's funny though. But thankfully, I'm usually aware enough to realize that, oh, they didn't get the joke. And so then I'll usually just say something like, you know, oh, well, if I have to explain it to you, it's not that funny. And that sometimes comes off as rude too. But I think maybe sometimes it can be a hidden part of our personality just because we only show it to certain people, right? We don't show it to everybody. Do you recommend a personality test? I've taken a few online, but they seem vague and I get a different result with each one. It doesn't really matter what personality test that you take. I personally like the one on the 16 Personalities website because it gives you a number for each one of the letters. It gives you a percentage for which one that you are. So I think that helps you understand. If you come back with, you're 50% introvert and 50% extrovert, then that will help you understand why sometimes you feel introverted and sometimes you feel extroverted. It doesn't really matter which one that you take. What matters is how you answer the questions. So it's important for you to answer the questions how you feel in general rather than how you feel in that moment. It's also important for you to think about how you actually are as a person as opposed to how you want to be. If you answer the questions how you want to be, you'll come out with a different result than how you actually are. And one of the things about INFJs is that we have a very hard time seeing ourselves as we are. We are amazing at looking at other people and figuring out their personality, figuring out what's wrong with them, figuring out how to help them. We can do that like all day long, super quick. But when it comes to ourselves, we're kind of paralyzed. And sometimes it takes other people saying things and noticing things to help us see ourselves. I would have never figured out that I was an INFJ by myself. I was mistyped as an INTJ because I wanted to be thinking. I wanted to be facts and logic. I wanted to have this stoic personality that nobody could read. And it took my niece going, "You are lying to yourself," for me to understand that I was actually mistyped. So, if you have somebody in your life that's like that, that's honest with you, then that could help you as well. Why are our opinions always misunderstood? I think this comes back to what we were talking about with us as INFJs, just feeling misunderstood. I know that in my own experience, I don't always understand how other people are perceiving me. I'm very direct and straight to the point, especially when it comes to my opinions. And when I'm talking to other people, sometimes I don't understand how devastating my opinion is until I see the shocked look on their faces, and some of them look like they're gonna cry, and I'm like, ooh, that was probably a little bit too much. I didn't need to be that cutthroat about it. But when I'm forming the opinion and when I'm talking, I don't think of it as being like super nasty. That's never my intention. My intention is always, something positive and something helpful. But I've learned that a lot of people, they're not interested in the truth. They're interested in what they want to hear. They're not interested in how you think. They're interested in how they think. And I genuinely feel like there's a big problem with acceptance in the world right now too, because a lot of people preach about acceptance, and it's usually the people who preach about acceptance the most, the loudest, who are the people who are the least accepting, because they want to accept people that they find acceptable. They want to accept people that they agree with. They want to accept people that they support. But when they're faced with somebody who they don't agree with, who they don't support, who they don't like, then they're not accepting anymore. So, and I know that's a really unpopular opinion, but it's the truth. So many people, they just want to accept people that they find acceptable. And if they don't find you acceptable, they're not going to accept you. I think that true acceptance comes in accepting people where they are, regardless of whether you understand them, regardless of whether you agree with them. even if they're preaching something at the top of their lungs that you would spend a lifetime preaching against at the top of your lungs. True acceptance is accepting those people as they are without expecting them to change, without asking them to change. Which, again, so many people don't do. I think there's going to be a whole chapter in my book about that. There might even be a whole book about that in the future, honestly. Maybe if the tide turns a little bit more and people are more accepting of true acceptance, I guess is the right way to say it. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. Make sure that you join my Facebook group. I would love to have you there. You can find it at facebook.com/groups/INFJwoman. Also, I'm going to be doing a really big sale for Black Friday and Cyber Monday this coming week, next week. Next week is Thanksgiving. I can't believe it. But if you haven't joined my newsletter, make sure that you join it because that's the only place that the sale is going to. You can join at infjwoman.com/newsletter. It's going to be a really big sale. Anyway, I will be back again next week, Tuesday, at noon Eastern time. So hopefully I will see you guys then. I just wanted to remind you one more time to come and join my Facebook group. We'd love to have you there. Go to facebook.com/groups/INFJwoman to join now. There's a link in the show notes. Also, if you know anyone who would benefit from the information in this show, please share it with them. Thank you so much for listening. I will see you again next week. Hi there. I just wanted to take a minute to say thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope that you enjoyed it. Please consider subscribing to my channel. I'm working very hard to produce content that will help you, and I really, really appreciate your support. Also, if you want some more inspiration, check out this video right here.